الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, excellent. Be quiet on this side. We got all the big men over here. Couldn't hear their voices. You heard them all the way across there. Tomorrow inshallah, with loud voice, yes? Alhamdulillah. So apologies, we kept you a little bit longer after Fajr than normal, and that's only because we had to complete that ruku. So because you've been on good behavior and because you gave salam loudly, we'll keep this one a little bit short so you can catch up with all your ibadah that you missed out after Fajr. Over the last few days, we've talked specifically and particularly about the difficulties that a Muslim will face in circumstances because of the choices that we have made potentially, and putting ourselves in harm's way, and potentially also with our children as we try to raise them and instill in them the values of Islam and instill within them the values of Iman. So how do we, in a practical way, so try to give a little bit more of a practical conversation, how do we in a practical way try to achieve those goals? As we know, if anybody wants to achieve anything in life, then they need some kind of timetable, they need some kind of order, structure. Those people who struggle having a structure in the world and eventually commit crime, the first thing that they're taught when they go to prison is structure. This is the time you get up, this is the time you go to sleep, this is what you'll wear, this is where you'll sit, this is where you'll go play, this is what you'll eat, this is what time the lights will go out, this is the time you'll go to sleep. And what they try to do is instill the habits into a person. The one thing that Islam is trying to teach us is self-discipline. Be disciplined. Control yourself. Manage yourself. So we see, for example, that up until 7, whatever it is, eyesight's not that good, 7:42, we're told not to eat. We're told not to eat. Then at 7:43, we're told to eat. We go to sleep, and then we're told we've got to get up, pray Fajr. We're told what to wear. We're told what we can eat, what we can't eat. We are told what we are allowed to engage with, what we're not. Constantly, instruction after instruction to break the nafs, to destroy the ego. So this person becomes submissive to Allah and teaches himself discipline, self-discipline. So then if the call comes that he has to march out on a battlefield, he doesn't say, yeah, but this, that. He says, when? He is so self-disciplined. So we find, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could quite easily have said, pray your 5 salahs in the day. Work around your timetable. We know you're busy people, you got work, you got school, you got this, you got that. So work it out as you see fit. He did not. Specific times, even though they may bring a little bit of difficulty to us. We know, for example, Isha, we have to pray, especially in the summer months, late at night. Many of us are tired, many of us want to go to sleep, we have to stay awake to pray Isha. Fajr can be literally halfway through the night when we're just about falling asleep, just about the eyes are resting, and then we're told to get up to pray. We are rewarded if, for example, the central heating is not working and we're using cold water to make wudu. Self-discipline. Organizing yourself. Being able to put yourself into difficult circumstances without complaining, without mourning. And we are supposed to start this instruction of self-discipline in a person who's still a child. Bulugh can be sometimes 14, 15, 10, 12. Yet we are told to instill values in children as young as 6, 7 years old. So that this self-discipline starts to come in. This is the time you get up. This is the time you go to sleep. Otherwise, when you let the nafs go, it now dictates to you what it wants you to do. I don't want to get up, I want to sleep in. I want to get up at 2 in the afternoon. I don't want to eat that, I want to eat this. Yeah, but this is halal. Yeah, but that's tastier. You allow that ego to go, and that ego will now decide what is right and wrong for it. How do we bring this self-discipline? How do we push ourselves to instill these sort of characteristics in us? And we know that self-discipline and self-management is considered as the best even for those who strive for the dunya. Anybody who achieves well in business will have good self-discipline, will have good time management. Anybody who succeeds in sports, you'll see, had good self-discipline, had good time management. Whilst everybody else was coming off the field, they're still there practicing. They have a drive, an energy, a will to succeed, to become better. So instructions we've been given, one is that we are told to pray 5 times a day. If we're not on that point that we're not praying 5 times a day, then self-discipline is a far dream. It's a far dream. Because if we cannot be told, even though we're given a duration, apart from Maghrib where it's a little bit shorter, for every other salah we have a duration of a couple of hours, a few hours. Now pray this salah within this time frame. Pray this within this time frame. If we cannot prioritize that, then we're falling at the first hurdle. Something is fundamentally flawed, something is fundamentally wrong, and that's where we need to have that conversation first, that what's going wrong here. This is a means in which you can speak to Allah. A means by which you can speak to your Creator. And when you want to listen to what He has to say to you, you have your Quran, you have the Mus'haf. So that means there has to also be regular through the day, even if it's small portions, recitation of the Quran. It doesn't have to be that you sit and pray a juz, recite a juz or something. Even if it is a side of a page, something, so that connection comes. That link comes back. You hear the kalam of Allah. These are eternal words, uncreated words. These have, we know for example, if you say something to a brother, something offensive, you'll see he'll get angry. These are just human words. Human words can get a person angry. So imagine the words of Allah, how much that is impacting on a person's heart. Some people say, yeah, but it's the same book. You're reading the same book from cover to cover, from cover to cover, from cover to cover. That's because they're looking at it from a worldly perspective. They're looking at it from a worldly perspective. What they don't understand is the spiritual impact this has. And we're going to speak in a few days' time about the different components of the human, the mind, the ruh, and the body, and how all are connected and how all have an effect on one another. So these are two aspects, the salah and the recitation of the Quran. Then, as we spoke yesterday, is to refrain from environments which are going to be conducive to this person to sin. Refrain from those environments. Even if you sit next to an animal, without touching the animal, eventually you start to smell like that animal. Even if you sit next to a person who's anointed himself with ithr, you'll eventually come smelling like that person. So the company you keep, the people around you, the places you go are also having an impact. That's the physical impact, but it's also having this spiritual impact. So it's a case of moving those away. Anything which is causing a problem to this self-discipline, to this self-control, we have to eradicate and move them out. And on the other side, we've got to try to accompany people and be in the company of people who remind us of Allah, who remind us of the Prophet ﷺ. So there's always these checks and balances there. There's always something there that's encouraging us. There's always something there that's reminding us. Because we need reminders, constant reminders. The human will always forget. The human will always forget. It's his nature. It's his fitrat. It's the way he is. So he will need constant reminders, regular reminders, in order to keep moving along, and as he's moving along, he's developing his self-discipline. He's developing his more control. He becomes more and more controlled. Remember, there's going to be a place that we're all going to go to in which there is nobody there with you. Nobody there with you. No friends, no associates, no pastimes, nothing to occupy you. And then you are going to be on your own, and that's when your self-discipline will come in. If we struggle right now to sit in a room alone without any external involvement with us, then how are we going to pass 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years in the barzakh? How is that time going to go? How are we going to be at ease? How are we going to be in control? It's trying not to be the prisoner of the mind. It's trying to have the mind, and one's discipline is not managed by what goes on around this person. He's in control. So he has to build this control. He has to go through this spiritual training in order to build this control, in order for ahkam and rules and regulations be easy for him to apply. So as soon as he sees a commandment, the first thing is not an objection. The first thing is not an excuse. The first thing is, yeah, but that applies to this, and is looking for ways out. The first thing is, sami'na wa ata'na. That would be the first response from that person. Why? Because he's already trained himself up for it. He's ready for that. His physicality, his spirituality, his mode is there. So we all have to look at our own timetables. Our timetables are a little bit different during Ramadan. But we know Ramadan, few days left. What is our normal regular timetable? What do we normally do? Look within that, 24 hours. What are we using those 24 hours for? How much sleep? How much work? And we say these are necessities. Well, in a way, we've made them as necessities. You know, we've tried to survive here on, in some cases, 3-4 hours of sleep. Sometimes you can tell. But we're still surviving. Whereas when we go out, we need, it's got to be 8.5 hours. You know, get the Apple Watch set, sleep thing, whatever, it synchronizes, so it gets us up at the right time. If there's a need for it, we need that. We've got to work these hours. Why do we need to work these hours? Because I've got to earn this money. Why do I need to earn this money? Because I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. Well, eventually, when you're taking out your hours for work, and you're taking your hours for sleep, and you're taking your hours for eating, and you're taking your hours for everything else, what are you going to leave behind? Is this what you came to the earth for? Is this what you were created for? To just eat and work and sleep, and that's it? Then how and what differentiates us from a cow in the field, from a donkey? What's the difference? In fact, it's worse, because the cow can at least say, look, I don't have a brain to be able to work out the sort of things you work out. If obviously the cow could speak. And the donkey would say the same thing. Now, I wasn't given aql. All I know is to eat and move. That's it. That's my level of intellectual capacity. You were given all this ability. You can think, you can reflect, you can recite the Quran, you can believe in a God, you can understand who the Prophet was, you can do all these things that I could not do. And you did the same things that I did. So who's worse, the donkey or the person now? Even though Allah gave you all this, all these abilities, you just mimicked me and did exactly what I did. So we've got to look at that timetable. What timetable do I have? How much sleep can I sacrifice? What can I do in that time? And then obviously our responsibilities that we have. Wife, children, community, whatever it might be. And sit and work that out. And in the time frame as well, continue to work on that self-discipline. Having that self-discipline. We see, unfortunately, our methods of self-discipline are probably the worst. When it comes to parking, we probably park the worst than any other community. We have simple instructions. Don't do this. That's the first thing we do. Oh, don't do this? Okay, that means I should do it. Yeah, I see in many massages, they'll have notices, polite notice. I don't know why it has to be polite. Why can't we just tell it as it is? Why does it have to be polite? Yeah, polite notice. Please don't play around with the radiators. It's like you're talking to children. Polite notice. Please don't do this. Polite notice. Please do that. Polite, please, 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 please. When we should be, as a community, the most disciplined. We should be coming in, we're taught to stand in rows, to not let your chest stick out, to be shoulder to shoulder, ankle to ankle, make sure it's a straight stuff. The Prophet ﷺ would come out to make sure that you could literally fire an arrow across the chest of the men. That's how straight it was. What? Self-discipline. Discipline yourselves. When we pray salah and we make tawaf, discipline. You have to be dressed in a certain way, walk in a certain way, do things in a certain way, move from one location to another. Discipline. And yeah, as I said, we can unfortunately be the worst when it comes to discipline. Applying rules, accepting rules, abiding by rules. When those communities used to become happy when having Muslims around them. They used to, oh, these are very clean people. They say, tahara is half of their iman. So the street's going to be clean. Okay, these people are very careful. So they're going to drive really slowly so no children get run over. These people are very generous. Alhamdulillah, I'm a neighbor of a Muslim. That means they're always going to be giving me gifts. So we speak from a very high platform. We speak from a very high platform, but what do we deliver? What do we deliver? Do we deliver this message? So now we always have to add that disclaimer, don't we? So whenever we're speaking to non-Muslims, we say, that's Islam, these are Muslims. That's Islam, these are Muslims. That's Islam, these are Muslims. So they say, whoa, what are you on about? Why you keep saying that's Islam and these are Muslims? Or because we don't actually practice that. We say we do, we try our best, but we're two different parties. Why should that be? Surely in the time that we've seen historically, the Muslims were Islam. That's what they were. You think the non-Muslims would come and study the Quran, or the non-Muslims would come and study Hadith? They would study humans. They would study humans. They would look at people's behavior, their discipline, their characteristics. When the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was being signed and the Mushrikun had sent one of their people, and he explained that I have sat in the castles and palaces of the Persians, and I've sat in the palaces of the Caesars, the Egyptians, and all the rest of them. I've never seen a king respected like the way the Prophet ﷺ is respected. That they have lowered heads. They sometimes don't make eye contact with him. The respect that they have for him, that if he was to spit some phlegm, they catch it before it falls on the floor. That level of discipline. So even when they went to perform Umrah, and they were restricted from performing Umrah, when the Prophet ﷺ came out and started to shave his head and slaughter the animal, all the companions followed. All the companions. So this was the level of obedience. This was the level of self-discipline. And we have to try to bring that self-discipline back into our lives. We bring that self-discipline in, the world will change overnight. The world will change overnight. We don't need to wait for miracles to descend from the heavens. All we have to do is do what we've been given the responsibility to do. We do that with the responsibility that we've been given. You'll see the change with your very own eyes. You'll see the change in your own houses. You'll see the change on your own streets. You'll see the change in your own communities. Because that's how the Muslims were. That's how the Muslims were. And that's why they were looked up at. And that's why they were respected. And that's why they were feared. Because they had discipline. They had self-control. They had self-management. They understood how to regulate their own behavior. They did not need telling how to regulate their own behavior. They did that themselves. So practically, let's work on a timetable. Practically, let's see where we can make things happen, where we can remove areas that are causing us problems and disrupting us. How can we improve being in areas that's going to improve our halat? And inshallah, day after day, month after month, year after year, you will see that improvement itself. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.